night was colder than usual, and the small diner on the corner of Chicago's busy street was nearly empty. Lisa, a hard-working waitress, wiped down the counter, her hands trembling from exhaustion. She had been on her feet for hours, taking orders, serving food, and forcing a smile despite the rude customers who barely acknowledged her presence. Just as she was about to clock out, the doors swung open and a tall, well-dressed man stepped inside. At first, she didn't pay much attention, until she looked up and her heart nearly stopped. It was Michael Jordan. If you're enjoying this story, make sure to subscribe for more. You don't want to miss what happens next. Lisa felt a rush of nervous energy as she walked up to him. She had never seen him in person, but his presence was undeniable. He wasn't just a legend on the court, he was an icon. But something about him tonight felt different. He wasn't surrounded by cameras or fans. He looked tired, deep in thought, almost like he was hiding from the world. "Good evening, sir. Can I get you something?" Lisa asked politely. Jordan looked up, giving her a small smile. "Just a coffee, please. Black. No sugar." She nodded and rushed to get his order, but the tension in the room was already building. Her boss, Mr. Reynolds, a man with a sharp tongue and little patience, had been watching from the back. His cold, judging eyes locked onto Lisa like a hawk. "What the hell is he doing here?" he muttered under his breath, just loud enough for Lisa to hear. She ignored him and placed the steaming cup of coffee in front of Jordan, but as soon as she did, a group of men at the other end of the diner started whispering and snickering. Lisa's stomach twisted. She could feel something was off. Then, one of them spoke, loudly. "Hey, Jordan, what's a big shot like you doing in a dump like this?" Lisa's hands clenched into fists. She had seen this before. She knew exactly where this was going. Jordan, calm as ever, simply lifted his coffee cup, took a sip, and ignored them. But they weren't done. "Bet you think you're too good to answer, huh?" Another one sneered. "Or maybe you're just scared without your security." Lisa's heart pounded. She had to do something. She couldn't just stand there and watch this unfold. So, before she could stop herself, she turned to the men and said, "Leave him alone." For a moment, there was silence. Then, laughter. Ugly, cruel laughter. "Look at this. The waitress thinks she's his bodyguard." One of them mocked. Lisa didn't care. She stood her ground. "You've had your fun. Now let him drink his coffee in peace." She thought that would be the end of it. She was wrong, because the next words that came out of Mr. Reynolds' mouth changed everything. "Lisa, you're fired." Lisa's breath caught in her throat. For a moment, she thought she had misheard him. Fired? For what? Standing up for a customer? Her hands trembled as she turned to face Mr. Reynolds, who stood behind the counter with his arms crossed, his face twisted in irritation. The men at the far end of the diner snickered, clearly enjoying every second of it. "Are you serious?" Lisa asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "You don't talk back to paying customers," Reynolds said coldly. "And you definitely don't start trouble over some washed-up athlete. Get your things and get out." The words hit like a punch to the gut. Lisa glanced at Jordan, expecting him to step in, to say something. But he didn't. He just sat there, his expression unreadable. Maybe he didn't want to make things worse for her. Maybe he was just used to this kind of treatment. Her heart pounded as she ripped off her apron and threw it on the counter. "You know what? Fine. I don't need this job." She turned on her heel and stormed out of the diner, stepping into the freezing night air. But as soon as the doors swung shut behind her, reality sank in like a weight on her chest. She had just lost her job, her only source of income. For what? For doing the right thing. Lisa shoved her hands into her pockets, trying to hold back tears. Rent was due in a week. She had barely enough money to last through the month. She had no backup plan, no savings, nothing. As she walked down the empty sidewalk, she kept replaying the moment in her head. Maybe she should have just kept quiet. Maybe standing up for Michael Jordan wasn't worth losing everything. And then, out of nowhere, a black luxury car pulled up beside her. The tinted window rolled down, and a deep, familiar voice called out, "Get in." Her breath hitched. She turned, and there he was. Michael Jordan. Lisa hesitated, her pulse racing. This had to be a mistake. Why would Michael Jordan, one of the most famous men in the world, be sitting in a car waiting for her? She took a cautious step closer, the cold wind biting at her skin. Why? She asked, her voice unsteady. Jordan smirked slightly. You stood up for me back there. Now, I'm standing up for you. Get in. Lisa swallowed hard. Everything in her life had just fallen apart in the span of a few minutes. She had nothing to lose. But stepping into that car? That was a whole different level of risk. Still, something in Jordan's eyes told her she could trust him. With a deep breath, she opened the door and slid inside. The leather seats were warm, a stark contrast to the icy night outside. Where are we going? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jordan glanced at the driver, then back at her. You'll see. The car pulled away from the curb, gliding through the city streets. Lisa sat in silence, gripping her hands together. The reality of what just happened at the diner still stung. Fired. Just like that. After a few minutes, Jordan finally spoke. That wasn't right, what they did to you. Lisa let out a shaky breath. Yeah, well, doesn't seem to matter. I'm the one out of a job now. Jordan chuckled, shaking his head. You think that's the end of your story? She turned to him, confused. Isn't it? The car slowed down, turning into a private entrance. Lisa's stomach dropped as she recognized the massive building ahead. The United Center. Her heart pounded. Wait, why are we here? Jordan leaned forward. Because I don't believe in people like you going unnoticed. You didn't just lose your job, Lisa. You earned something better. Before she could respond, the car pulled to a stop, and Jordan gestured toward the entrance. Come on, he said. Let me show you what standing up for the right thing gets you. Lisa's breath caught in her throat. What was happening? Lisa stepped out of the car, her legs shaky. The wind hit her, but she barely felt it. Michael Jordan was leading her into the United Center. She had spent years watching this arena on TV, dreaming of one day being part of something bigger than her small-town life. But never, in her wildest imagination, did she think she'd be walking through its private entrance, with Michael Jordan himself. Come on, Jordan said, holding the door open for her. Lisa hesitated. I don't understand. Why am I here? Jordan smirked. You'll see. They walked through a dimly lit hallway, the sound of their footsteps echoing. Security guards nodded at Jordan as they passed, but their eyes lingered on Lisa. Lisa swallowed hard. She wasn't supposed to be here. After what felt like an eternity, Jordan stopped in front of a large door. He pushed it open, revealing a luxurious lounge filled with people in suits, their conversations buzzing with energy. The moment Jordan stepped inside, the room fell silent. All eyes turned to him. Lisa's stomach twisted. She suddenly felt wildly out of place in her worn-out sneakers and the diner uniform she still hadn't had time to change out of. Then Jordan spoke. Everyone, I want you to meet Lisa. A few murmurs rippled through the crowd. Lisa felt her breath hitch. Jordan gestured toward her. She's got something most people don't, courage. Lisa's heart pounded. What was he doing? An older man in a sharp gray suit stepped forward, adjusting his glasses. And why exactly are we meeting her? Jordan leaned back casually, a smirk tugging at his lips. Because she stood up for the right thing. And that means something to me. Lisa's hands trembled. The weight of 100 stares pressed down on her. The older man studied her for a moment, then nodded. Courage is hard to find these days. He extended his hand. My name is Richard Calloway, CEO of the Calloway Foundation. Lisa shook his hand, barely processing what was happening. What was the Calloway Foundation? Jordan clapped his hands together. Lisa, let me put it this way. Losing your job was the best thing that ever happened to you. Lisa blinked, completely lost. I don't understand. Jordan grinned. You will. Before Lisa could ask another question, Richard Calloway gestured toward a seat at the long, polished table. Sit down, Lisa. We have something to discuss. Lisa's pulse raced. What was going on? What had she just walked into? And more importantly, how was her life about to change forever? Lisa hesitated, but Jordan gave her a reassuring nod. Slowly, she took a seat at the long, polished table. The men and women in suits watched her closely, some curious, others skeptical. Richard Calloway folded his hands on the table. Lisa, tell me, do you know who we are? Lisa shook her head. No, sir. Calloway chuckled. We're a group of former athletes, business leaders, and philanthropists. We invest in people who deserve second chances. People who stand for something bigger than themselves. He tilted his head. Like you. Lisa's breath caught. Was this some kind of test? Jordan leaned forward. Lisa, I know what happened at the diner. I know you got fired for standing up for me, and I know that wasn't fair. Lisa swallowed hard. I didn't do it for attention. I just couldn't watch someone be treated like that. Calloway nodded approvingly. That's exactly why you're here. A woman with short blonde hair, dressed in a navy blue power suit, spoke up. Lisa, how much were you making at that diner? Lisa hesitated. Barely enough to survive. The woman exchanged a look with Calloway, then turned back to Lisa. How would you feel about an opportunity that could change your life? Lisa's heartbeat quickened. What kind of opportunity? Jordan smirked. One where you'll never have to serve another cup of coffee unless you want to. Lisa's mind spun. Was this real? Was she dreaming? Calloway reached into his suit jacket and slid a white envelope across the table. Lisa stared at it, afraid to touch it. Inside, Calloway said, is a check for $25,000. Consider it a fresh start. Lisa gasped. Her fingers trembled as she picked up the envelope. Her entire life, she had struggled. She had worked endless shifts, barely scraping by. And now this? Tears burned in her eyes. I don't understand. Why would you do this for me? Jordan leaned back, arms crossed. Because people like you deserve better. You proved that when you stood up for the right thing, without expecting anything in return. Lisa blinked, trying to hold back the overwhelming emotion. This couldn't be real. But then Calloway smiled. Lisa, we're not just giving you money. We're giving you a choice. You can take that check and walk away, or, he leaned in slightly, you can stay and hear about an even bigger opportunity. Lisa's pulse pounded in her ears. What could possibly be bigger than this? She looked at Jordan, searching for an answer. Jordan grinned. Trust me, you'll want to hear this. Lisa swallowed hard. This night was far from over. Lisa gripped the envelope tightly, her mind racing. $25,000 was more money than she had ever seen in her life. But something about Jordan's words, about a bigger opportunity, made her hesitate. She took a deep breath. I want to hear it. Calloway's smile widened. Good choice. He gestured toward the blonde woman, who slid a folder across the table. Lisa opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a contract. Her eyes darted over the words, something about community outreach, youth mentorship, leadership training. She looked up, confused. I don't understand. What is this? Jordan leaned in, his expression serious. Lisa, we're building a program to help underprivileged kids. Kids who've been told they'll never amount to anything. They need someone who understands their struggle. Someone real. He nodded at her. Someone like you. Lisa's heart pounded. You want me to help? Calloway nodded. Not just help. Lead. We want you to be part of something bigger. To be the voice for people like you who don't get a fair shot. Tears welled in Lisa's eyes. For so long, she had felt invisible, like her struggles didn't matter. And now, here she was, being seen, being chosen. But, I'm just a waitress, she whispered. Jordan smiled. Not anymore. Lisa exhaled sharply. The weight of her old life, the rejection, the struggle, seemed to lift from her shoulders. She looked at the contract, then at the people sitting before her. And then, with a deep breath, she picked up the pen. As she signed her name, a slow realization settled over her. Getting fired wasn't the end of her story, it was just the beginning. Fire the end? Or maybe just the start of something bigger.